Bloxburg just wrapped up their first ever Q&A session hosted by the studio director Froggy Hops and the two community managers Bram and Mari. The event did happen during school for a lot of you all, me included, so I recorded the hour-long Q&A, so I went ahead and chopped it up into clips for this video. Now I will say they covered a very wide range of topics, so I'm going to try to keep the video as organized as possible, and I'll also give my full thoughts on what I think about the Q&A at the end of this video. Firstly, they just introduced themselves, so I'll play that real quick.
Right, thank you guys so much for joining. So as you know, this is a Q&A. I am Bram P.
I guess we're introducing ourselves. I'm Mari.
And I'm Froggy, or Froggy Hops. So I'm the studio manager and game director currently for Coffee Stain Gothenburg. And then the other two that introduce themselves, if you haven't met them before, hopefully you have, there are community managers.
In the Bloxburg Discord server, we were given the opportunity to submit questions like a week in advance. So most of these questions were pre-prepared and they already had notes for them. So if any of the questions sound like scripted or whatever, I guess that's why. The first question they covered was about the map revamp.
What is the status of the map revamp? Where is that map that we mentioned? Well, as you guys probably realize, things did not go according to our initial plans. And kind of pulling back the curtains on our development, we started working on the new map with our team last year. We initially hoped to deliver it at the beginning of this year. And then as we got further into that process, we moved our internal planned delivery date to around May. So it was actually supposed to come before our free-to-play launch. It was going to be the update leading up to that. But as we really started evaluating it, and obviously a map is a super important change. I mean, that's the foundation for a lot of the future development that we have planned. We became pretty self-critical, and even after working on this map for many months, we weren't happy with the results. Definitely didn't meet our own expectations, which means it probably wouldn't meet yours either. But we're essentially back at the start in terms of what we're doing with the map. We're wanting to make sure that what we're delivering meets our own expectations and yours, and that such a major change is going to take a while for us to deliver. Ultimately, our goal is to bring you guys the new map next year. Obviously, the sooner we can get it out, the better. But we want to make sure that we're taking the time accordingly to deliver on something so important.
They also announced that just last week they hired a new development team member.
We actually had a new addition to our team that started with us this week, Never Trust Bob. And he is our new environment artist. He comes with some really exciting experience on the platform, and he's really good at creating immersive game worlds.
If you've ever wanted more plots or more plot locations on Bloxburg, then here's the answer for you.
That brings us to the next question, which follows up to that. Is Bloxburg adding other types of plots? That's also a very common question. We've seen you guys asking for apartments, for islands, and we would love to have that. But first, we want a new map in place. We are definitely going to look into more options after that.
And we do want the game to have all kinds of settings and locations to spark creativity and showcase all types of play creations, especially with our future map and environment changes. So it's a yes.
The next question was about whether we would get hollow gable roofs or attics or any other just general roof changes to Bloxburg.
So we're definitely hoping to overhaul our roofing system at some point, but it's actually one of the most complex systems that the game has. And for those that obviously you don't see the complexity of the game in the same eyes that we do, I think we're at a few 100,000 lines of code now. And the way that a roofing system works is it's basically teaching a computer how to draw shapes and geometry from scratch. And when you try to make those shapes more complex, of course, all the math and everything that makes that function is equally complex. So we definitely want to add things like hollow roofs, and we want to find a way to incorporate skylights too. The platform has actually been working on a new feature, which those of you that follow more of the technical side of Roblox, they're releasing a new feature that's out now called editable meshes. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to utilize some of their new technologies to rework and deliver some changes like this, but we don't know exactly when that'll come.
The next question was just generally about transportation, adding things like supercars and just generally public transportation on the new map.
We don't have like a specific time frame yet, but would love to add public transport on the new map.
Yes, so that includes, for example, buses that you can take to somewhere. And that comes with the question, what about cars? Will we get some new supercars? A lot of you have been asking for fast cars and bigger limousines. And while we would love to add that, it's currently not great on the map that we have if you want to drive somewhere fast. We do have a highway, but we want to wait with that again until we have the new map so you can fully utilize the car, as they will also cost a lot because of their options. We are going to wait with that, and we do plan on adding some other cars in the meanwhile.
Mari then spoke to emergency buildings like hospitals, fire stations, and police stations.
Another big request is a hospital. And yes, we would love to add a hospital and other like emergency kind of buildings too. And popular city locations that would bring a lot to the gameplay and immersion for roleplays. We do not have a timeline for this, and it will not be part of our initial map, like the future one we're going to have, but it's definitely something that we plan for the future.
Now, I'd been waiting on this question. This was about gaining back the trust of players after it was lost over the summer with all the things going on with the pay cuts and all. And he said that there was a period that didn't go very well, which I think is a little bit of an understatement, but I'll let him talk.
So one of the big things that we've been seeing over the last few months, and obviously from some changes that didn't go very well earlier this year, is what are the plans to gain back the trust of our player base? One of the biggest ways that you saw myself and our team talk about in some of our communications last week is we plan on improving our communications and being more transparent with you guys. For those that have been around the game for a long time, that myself included, we definitely haven't done a great job in being open and sharing kind of where we're going, why we're doing certain things. So that's something that we really want to focus on. And we want to make sure that you guys feel heard and that ideas you have are either being discussed or incorporated. So if we're adding something, we'll let you know. If we're not, we want to share why that's not being added and what the justification for that decision is. Ultimately, we want the game to feel like it's something that all of us, both players and developers, feel connected to and have fun playing. So
after that, Bram spoke to the pretty controversial donation limit on Bloxburg.
There used to be no limit, and that was very easy for exploiters to donate glitched money to other players, causing them to be banned. So we are looking into the donation limit and the cooldown, as it's not the best system, and we admit that. And we will address that hopefully in the near future.
Mari then went ahead and talked about the planes and boats that people are suggesting to have on Bloxburg. I guess they could be used on like the ocean or the river, for example.
If we are going to have more types of vehicles, such as boats or planes, etc., and definitely, but we also don't have a timeline on when these are coming. We're just as excited about being able to explore the game in all kinds of vehicles, and we feel like that really matches with our vision of creating a life simulation game. And we hope that this is going to happen with some of our future map changes, but it's not coming just yet.
Sadly, VR support is not coming to Bloxburg, but Mari here will explain why.
It's VR support. We know some players do use VR. And sadly, we're not currently thinking about implementing VR support because while VR can be a lot of fun to play, it's a pretty small portion of users who own VR devices, and this would take a lot of time and resources to make this an enjoyable experience. So we currently feel like it's best to spend our time focusing on like improvements in the game and changes that the majority of our players are impacted by. So sorry, VR players.
The next question Froggy Hops answered was about the house marketplace and whether or not players will be able to upload their own creations to the marketplace as opposed to just the people in the content creator program as the house marketplace is now.
So that's definitely our goal. Our long-term vision for our pre-built catalog has always been for players to have the ability to upload their own or purchase plots by other creators. Unfortunately, it's something that in order to roll this out at scale, we need something that the platform doesn't currently have. That is the feature of being able to essentially capture a screenshot. So generating images of your creations when uploading them to our catalog. The engine, for those that are more tech savvy, has a feature called viewports, which for those that aren't as tech savvy, that's what we use to preview the items in the catalog. But this is something that it has a lot of limitations as well, and it's not good for performance. So when we're rendering things like entire houses, it wouldn't really work well. It also isn't great with things like lighting and can't show things like particles. So if you had like flames or confetti or other things there, you've probably seen some other games that have catalogs like this, but the difference is they're manually curating and uploading those. And we don't think that this is a good long-term solution for our team to have to manage all that. Ultimately, we want it to be pretty automated. So it's definitely something that we're wanting to do. We've had a number of discussions with the platform on our request and the changes that we need for this to be a future option. And we know some other developers are also having those same discussions and would benefit too. So we're hoping that as the platform continues to work with us, we will eventually be able to bring public uploads to the pre-built catalog.
Here both Bram and Mari are discussing the Burger Shop revamp and the path that paved for other future revamps and the revamping of skills in the future.
To job overhauls, now we did add the Burger Chop job. That's a hard one to say. And that was a new work mode. It made it a lot more fun to work, and that leaves a question for other jobs. And of course, we are planning to rework some other jobs as well down the line. But we didn't want to focus all development on those jobs and add some new things in the meanwhile as well. But we are going to be delivering more jobs and mixed with more fun, as we do want to make working more fun in the game.
Yeah, following what Bram just said, it's pretty much the same idea for the skills as well. We intend to overhaul the game skills to include like more unique gameplay and immersion, and also different rewards, such as unique furniture and items. We have many ideas, and some, of course, from the community, feedback and internal brainstorms, such as the ability to play instruments with other players, having a better cooking skill that requires ingredients to complete recipes, and like other fun opportunities. But we also don't have any specific timeline on these, but we know that this would be so fun to do. So that's for the future.
There are some obstacles in adding more plot data to Bloxburg, so here's Bram discussing that in Roblox.
And then more plot data. We have a lot of amazing builders out there who are stuck with their plot data. And we did add 40% in the past, but that was because Roblox servers were evolving. However, adding even more plot data is kind of reliant on Roblox. And we do hope that in the future there will be more opportunities to add more plot data, but for now it's going to have to be a no, just because of our limitations on the platform as well.
Bloxburg has had lots of lore in the past with the newscaster guy, or the Boomers Fireworks guy, or Susan, or the witch at the Halloween event, and here's Mari discussing further lore plans and what that'll look like in the future.
And oh my god, lore is just amazing. We pretty much discuss lore every day here within the team. And we do think the game doesn't have enough personality and story to immerse our players in. We are working on long term on bringing more unique gameplay and personality to our NPC characters, creating storylines and interactions with them, and making Bloxburg have a story that you can become a part of while playing. So that's going to be very, very exciting. We're really looking forward to more into the game.
I was actually shocked not only that they just said this in the Q&A, but that they're going to add this to the game at all. Here's Bram pretty much discussing what they're going to do next year.
Some of you want to gift game passes and currencies to other players. And we are hoping to add that early next year. So you won't be able to gift game passes for Christmas yet. But if you save up your Robux, you can gift to friends early next year as a late Christmas present, I guess.
Pets are one of Bloxburg's most requested updates from the community for quite a long time now, actually. And here's Bram talking about that and what that'll look like in Bloxburg in the future.
I'm going to bring up a big topic now. Pets. You can stop spamming pets. We do want to add pets in the game, but we don't want to make it like where the pet is just following your avatar. We actually want to bring them into the real-life aspect of the game and into the simulation so that you can actually work with features, that you can feed them. So adding a lot more complexity to that. And that's why we haven't added them yet, is because we really want to do it well and do it right. And we also want to bring in like different breeds, different sizes. So we want to make it more than just a pet following your avatar.
Adding immersive audio and sounds, and then also bringing back the old music game pass is something I've wanted done on Bloxburg for quite a while, so here's Froggy Hops talking about that.
What are the plans for bringing back custom music to the radios, and why was this removed? So this is definitely a tricky one. Unfortunately, the ability to input custom audios was from Roblox's change and how they were handling any copyright audios and sounds. And because of those changes, we're now limited in actually how many IDs we can use from their catalog to link in the game. I think it's limited around 200 IDs, meaning that obviously we're not able to support millions of options out there that players would love to be able to input and use. We are, however, working on some pretty exciting audio changes, which we're hoping to announce more specifics on pretty soon. And we're also looking at future opportunities on how we can give you guys more variety for music listening in the game. So things such as maybe radio stations or different curated playlists. Obviously, we would love for more customization, but we don't know when that'll necessarily be an option because of how the platform's structured. So hopefully with the platform's changes, we'll have more options in the future on this.
Over the summer, Bloxburg added the cultural food update. I think it was called the International Food Festival or something like that. But Mari here is talking about other cultural foods that could possibly be added and asking for suggestions.
Moving on to another completely different subject, but we know some players really want more cultural stuff to be added. So cultural foods and items. And yes, we definitely want to include more items reflecting different cultures and backgrounds, both with foods and items. We want to be very careful in our planning, though, and make sure that we accurately represent these different cultures in meaningful ways. And we are also always looking for suggestions, so please keep them coming. We love to know, like, different foods and different items from your culture. So, yeah, please suggest them.
Many people have been wondering if Coeptus still works on the game, the guy that founded this all, and then he sold it off to Coffee Stain.
And obviously, he's our founder, the OG Bloxburg developer. So unfortunately, he's not actively working on the game full time. He was working alongside our team last year as we transitioned to being a part of Coffee Stain. So he was really vital in helping our new team learn all of the complex systems that many of which he wrote and created. But now he's taking some time to focus on some other aspects of his life, since before that, he was quite honestly only developing. He was spending night and day focused on the game, and obviously that's not good for his well-being. But he does definitely continue to still stay in touch with us. He's our biggest cheerleader, and he also is helping us directly with consulting. So he still weighs in on the game's vision, our roadmap, and our future plans. He's still there on speed dial when we need help in fixing things, and he also weighs in how we're operating as a company. So he's still involved, just not to the full extent that he used to be.
In some of the past Bloxburg updates, we've seen revamps of previously added items, so here's Froggy Hops talking about what that looks like in the future.
And then another question that we received was, what are the plans to revamp or replace older items in the game? We definitely want to take some time to revamp some of the items that feel pretty outdated. We also want to take the time to replace assets that have historically been used from the Roblox catalog. So you can see some of the different meshes or objects are directly from objects that the platform's had for a long time. And over time, we're wanting to replace those so that all of our content featured in the game is our own unique objects. So definitely plans to continue replacing those.
Bram is obviously one of the community managers, and he answered a question here about what that may look like in the future.
A common question as well is, will you ever bring polls back? As you remember, Coeptus once did a poll on his Twitter where he asked about what you guys wanted the Halloween grass to be. And we definitely want to bring that back. We definitely want to add your opinion to Bloxburg and value your opinion. And we think voting on content in the future will definitely help with that.
After what happened with the fainting bills and the hospital bills, I don't know how this will go over with the community, but apparently they're going to add gas to Bloxburg.
I saw somebody in the chat asking about vehicles and gas, and that's actually the next question, is are there any plans to add the feature for vehicles to require gas? And we think the suggestion is very fun, and it's definitely something we're considering, especially as we look into future plans on how we can improve the immersion when driving vehicles in game. So, person in the chat, you can be happy now.
Bloxburg neighborhoods can hold up to 75 people, but only 12 of those people can get houses. So this question was about expanding that number.
All right. Another popular question is, are there any plans to increase the number of players that are in servers? So this is definitely something that we've continued to talk about over the years, and we really want to do. We would love for you to have more people to play with and engage with and interact with, especially for things like role plays or hosting events, showing off your builds. But we need to figure out some kind of core game changes and optimizations to make this happen. So, for example, there's maybe only going to be a limited number of plots like in neighborhoods, but more players. And it's difficult for some players to get around because right now they don't have access to things like vehicles or other things that improve their gameplay when they don't have a plot. So it's something that we would love to raise the number of players featured in servers. And we definitely have a strong belief that this will be beneficial, but there's some other steps that we need to take first. So it's definitely planned.
Bloxburg is going to make an effort to improve the quality of life of players and experiences.
And then another common topic is, what about the ability to change decals in build mode? So obviously this is something that would benefit all of you builders out there, hopefully one day, but we don't have a timeline for this quite yet. We're looking at all sorts of kind of quality of life changes that we can give our builders while you're editing those creations. So things such as opening or closing your doors while you're in build mode, setting decal IDs, turning on and off your lights. So definitely a lot that can be improved there and something that we are focusing on.
There are 11 Bloxburg team members and they're looking to expand. Here's Froggy Hops talking about what that's going to look like and what their jobs are.
Another hot topic that we've seen a lot of, especially since we joined Coffee Stain, and as I think most of you know now, we opened up a new studio. We've grown our team pretty significantly from starting as one and then eventually 2 people. So currently our team is at 11 people, though we're currently working on hiring and expanding in a few different aspects of the team. I also wanted to just touch on what are the different roles of game development and what those mean. So right now I'm serving as our studio manager and game director, meaning that what I do is I work with our team every day to make sure that the roadmap and plans are meeting the game's overall vision and the needs for our players. And then I also work on things like more behind the scenes, so business development, such as conveying any issues or requests that we have to the Roblox platform. Also looking at potential collaborations, which we'll touch on a little bit later, and making sure that obviously our team is getting paid. No one wants to work for free, and some additional just behind the scenes work. On our design side of the game, so kind of what falls under a more artistic or design direction for the game. So we have one game designer, and when you hear game designer, it's not someone who's necessarily doing like the 3D modeling. That's under a different role. So game design, they're responsible for designing the core features and systems. So for example, the new public neighborhood change, the gameplay revamp for the Bloxburger job last year, or also setting different elements like the pricing or the qualities that our objects have in the catalog. We also have 2 3D artists. So those are the ones that are working on the modeling to bring any ideas and needs to life for the game. So all of your different furniture, things like vehicles, all of those really exciting assets. Also on our design team is our animator. So that's the one who's bringing some life and fun to our different objects and all of our interactions, different emotes, things on that front. And then lastly, on the design side is our environment artist, which I touched on earlier, who joined our team this week, or world designer, if that makes it easier to understand. And he's the one that will be working on creating the map, some of the different environment changes for seasonal events or activities, and the environment that the game itself is all taking place in.
Bram also went into his and Mari's role as community managers and what other jobs are around that sector.
And then outside of the design team, we have Mary and I, who are community managers. We run things such as the content creator program. We take in your suggestions and bug reports and we test them in the game and then report them to the team. We moderate. We sometimes handle in-game reports. We test updates. We make content and everything you see on the surface. And then in addition to us as community managers, we also have other disciplines. So we have 3 programmers. They are the ones who make sure that everything works, such as recently the neighborhoods that were added. And they do more of the behind-the-scenes work, basically. So they also fix bugs.
I believe Bloxburg actually won a Bloxy Award in the past for either mobile or console support, I'm not sure. But over the past few years, that support has kind of gone downhill. So here's Froggy Hops talking about what they're doing to improve that over the next couple of years.
So we're definitely focusing on console a lot more than we have been historically. We want to make sure that the game on console, both PlayStation and Xbox, actually feels like it's meant to be played on them. I think as any of our console or controller players know right now, while it mostly works, it doesn't feel very intuitive or very good to actually play the game on those types of devices. And because of how small our team is right now, so as you heard, we're at 11 people right now, and it would take some pretty significant resources to focus on this to the degree we would want to with our team. We've actually engaged an external studio that's under our parent company. So they're going to be building a team with us that's solely focused on bringing the console versions of the game to a greater life. They're definitely experts in this type of work. They've worked on a number of other major games to help with console porting and really can think through how games can feel good for any controller players. And then we're also doing a general pass on accessibility for the game. So looking at things like hotkeys and how things are visualized, as well as some other accessibility, just general changes.
According to Froggy Hops here, lighting is going to become a focus in the game's future.
Speaking of houses and things that probably bother our players, a question that we've seen quite a bit is, will lighting ever be adjusted so that the lights are not going through my walls? That's definitely our hope. So for those that follow the platform's technology and obviously are playing other games, some games are using a platform change called future lighting. And I'm sure a lot of you have asked, well, why aren't you guys in Bloxburg using this too? And I think an element that a lot of you don't know and why we haven't changed yet is that it actually hasn't been available to all of our players. So anywhere from about 65 to 75% of our players are playing on mobile or tablet devices. And while the platform has been making advancements, it, as a lighting engine, hasn't been available for all of these devices. It initially was only available on PC. Later, they added support for iOS devices, so iPhones, iPads, and they are just now in the final stages of making it available to Android devices. So because of the types of changes that go with overhauling the game's lighting, we have to go in and modify every single one of the lights in game to change the look of it and how we would like it to appear to all of the players. But those aren't edits that we can make where it's basically changing based off the device that you're playing on. And it would have led to the lighting looking really good for those of you that it was already supported for, but way worse for some of the others where you would have had players on Android or mobile devices that were just really suffering with how it looked visually. So we're hoping that as the platform finalizes rolling things out the remainder of this year, that this is a change we'll be able to tackle sometime next year and improve the game's visuals as a whole, which we're really excited about.
We saw a specific release date when Bloxburg went free and for the last update, but Froggy Hops is going to explain why that hasn't happened for anything else.
All right, another question that I've seen in the chat, and we definitely saw a lot leading up to the Q&A, is why are there not specific release times or countdowns like what some of the other games on the platform are doing? And will this ever change? So this is a question that we get a lot, and we definitely understand why. But because of the nature of development, it's often extremely risky on our end to lock in to a given time. And this also adds some stress to our team. So some games that you might be seeing doing this already have often completed their content weeks or maybe even months in advance, so they can release at that very specific time and make sure that everything works. We currently have the belief that it's more important to get our content out to all of you faster, but this means that it's not really realistic to target exact specific times. We, of course, have targets and projections that we try to hit, but there's cases where we have to adjust our plans, where sometimes we might have to push things off a week, but because we haven't promised that, it's not necessarily a major change. For example, last week, we of course were aiming to release in our usual window of Thursday. We had some issues come up when we were doing final testing that we didn't want to put the game out in a state that wouldn't be fun for you guys to use the new feature. So we made the decision to release on Friday instead. And we want to continue, at least for the future, right now, to have that flexibility. So it's not in our current plans to announce any countdowns or exact times.
Bloxburg has always been rather isolated, in my opinion, for things like the egg hunt or the RB battles. We were never really a required part of that because we were paid access, so it was kind of hard to do. But now that we're free, I asked if that would become a more common thing to participate in Roblox-wide events.
So are there any plans to participate in platform-wide events? So, for example, the hunt, or will you be doing any other sort of live events in the game, like concerts, or what about things like brand integrations? So we would love to bring more events in general into the game, but these often mean quite a bit of work behind the scenes, often for very short-term changes. Most of those events obviously will last maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks maximum. And now that we're free to play, we definitely are considering and talking to the platform about our involvement in future events. So it's definitely not off the table and something that if there's a good opportunity, we would love to participate. And we also love the idea of having live events, as those are incredibly unique. So I've loved some of the different concerts or other live opportunities that some of the other games have provided. And on the topic of brand integration, so I'm sure as any of our longtime players have known, we've never done any brand integrations. We aren't ruling these out. We're definitely in talks and looking at if there's brands that we can partner with, but it really comes down to whether or not it meets our game's vision and the sense of realism with us being a life simulation game. We don't want things that feel out of place or really break the player experience. We want to make sure that all of our changes, whether events or integrations, feel like they belong in the world of Bloxburg. So definitely look in the future. We're hoping that we can bring some of these to life. I don't have any specifics that we can share yet, but definitely some ongoing conversations behind the scenes.
I thought this question was kind of random, but if you want to listen, go ahead. Mario's just talking about adding your own meshes to Bloxburg.
Next question is about if there will ever be will ever give you guys the ability to import your own models or textures to our game. And we have a couple of problems with that. First, because of how Roblox handles assets, both in terms of usage rights and moderation, and also about the optimization for the performance of the game and to maintain a consistent look for our players. We do not have a current plan to actually allow that to happen, so it's for you to import your own models for textures. But we do, of course, intend to continue adding plenty of variety in our end. So keep sending your suggestions of what you would like to see in the game, what you would like to be added. That will definitely be listening.
If you've ever wanted higher floors on Bloxburg, here's your answer for that.
Will we ever get more floors or a higher floor height? And I'm going to be completely honest, we're not sure how it would work in the game or how it would look in the game. So while we can do that, we want to make sure that if we implement it, it's right for the game and right at the time as well. But it's definitely a possibility that you will get more floors or more basement levels in the future. We're just not sure at this time.
Neighborhoods are probably one of Bloxburg's most consequential features they've ever added, and it's probably one of my favorite features that Bloxburg has. I love going in my neighborhood. CodeCider_TV, the best Bloxburg neighborhood, join that. But anyway, Mari here is answering a question about furthering the features and capabilities that neighborhoods offer.
With the public neighborhoods, one of the questions that we got is if neighborhoods will ever receive additional functions, such as more weather or reserved plots for neighborhood owners, etc. And we definitely plan to add more features and customization to neighborhoods long term. And the goal is to give neighborhood owners the control to create their own scenarios, creations, or events in many aspects. We love some of the suggestions we are receiving, and we are taking all sorts of this into consideration for our future plans. So definitely expect some, but we cannot promise any specifics yet. But as always, please keep suggesting whatever you'd like to see.
This was a big question about jobs and the efficiency system. Froggy Hops answered it.
So why were jobs changed to using the efficiency system and an overall work experience level? So the changes to our jobs were actually really important for us behind the scenes. So starting with the efficiency system, we felt before there was a pretty wide variation in terms of the outcomes of shifts and jobs, meaning that it was really hard to both predict and balance and really control this on our end, leading to very different experiences for our players, which the more we can try to dial that in, the better. So that's something that it really creates a lot of, issues on our end. And making the change to going for this efficiency system allows us to actually work and create new jobs or overhaul the existing ones in a much faster pace. So this was more of a necessary change that we needed to make in order to be efficient on our end. And then regarding the overall work experience level, the biggest reason and the driver behind this and why we feel so strongly behind it is we want to make sure our players don't feel like you're ever locked into one particular job track. That obviously you've spent a lot of time progressing in it, but we don't want you missing out on the future content. So say that we add some super cool or exciting job and you're sitting there on your pizza scooter and you're like, wow, it looks way more fun at Bloxburger right now. I also want to go fry things or chop things. We don't want you to feel like you're either missing out on that, or if you go and participate, starting all the way back at the bottom of the totem pole per se in terms of how much money you're making. So with this change, we want to make sure that you're still being paid accordingly for all the time that you spent working hard in the game, but that you also have the flexibility to choose what jobs you're working and spending your time doing. And in the future, like we've all been talking about, as we add more rewards and gameplay to these overhauled jobs, that you can still benefit from those and get those without the same level of grinding to really benefit long term.
If you've ever wanted to add more than 4 different color options to a specific item, here's your answer for that.
And then another one that we've seen some questions on today, as well as leading up to this, is will items ever have more than 4 customizable color or material groups? So there might be opportunities to expand our customization slots on some items, but generally the less we can keep the, different properties of item, the better. And this is both for performance and saving data. So anytime we add more customization to objects, we have to save all of this information. So for example, whether or not you have a door open or closed, or if an object is in a different state, for example, your umbrella is open, or what part of what object has what color and what material, is there a light source in it that's on and off, and obviously the list keeps going on. The more we can do to reduce these, the better it's going to be for all of you. This will reduce your plot data, it'll improve your performance, so we're definitely looking at where it makes sense to give more customization, as ultimately we want you guys to be able to customize to your heart's desire, but we have to also balance it out in what makes sense for how the game operates.
By the sound of Bram's response here, it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting expanded plots, individual plots in the future.
Next up is large plots. And will plots ever be made larger? Now, this is not currently planned, as this will be a lot of work for the programmers and we need to change a lot in the game. And we do feel like currently with the 50 by 50 large plot, there's already a lot of room for creativity. But we may revisit it in the future. It's just currently not something we're looking into.
Going free to play, even before Coffee Stain came into the picture, was always a big debated topic on Bloxburg. A lot of people just didn't want to do that. They thought all these new people would come that were exploiters or noobs or whatever the case may be. But pretty much Froggy Hops is going to explain why the decision was eventually made to go free.
Why was the decision made to go free to play? So obviously a super hot topic for longtime players. So even in the days of it just being Coeptus and I working on the game, we always had the intention of Bloxburg going free to play. One of the main reasons that we kept the paywall for as long as we did was that it really allowed us an easier way to keep out people such as exploiters or bots or some of the bad actors on the platform. But the platform's been making some pretty significant improvements. So for those that follow their Bifron development and acquisition, they've really helped us kind of change our decision on that front. And then additionally, as the platform evolves, the way that new players discover our game, so the platform's algorithms and where it's being shown to new people and kind of how that impacts our marketing, because we were a paid access game, it was negatively impacting us a lot more than I think most of you realize, where we saw that it was almost necessary for us to really make that change in order to get the game in front of more people. We obviously want to keep growing our player base to sustain our business, as well as give you guys more opportunities to meet more people, continue to grow the player base in our community, which we think is a lot of fun. And we decided that because of those factors, it became necessary. We did initially want to ship some other changes that would have added some flavor. So, for example, the map being a huge one, that was something that we were hoping it would sequence out. But because of the other things that came into play, it just didn't pan out the way we wanted it to. But in the end, we decided we still needed to make the game free to play because of the other opportunities.
Bloxburg is making a big push to be more transparent, and this is one of the ways that they are talking about doing that.
And then touching on another one. So this kind of ties back to our general shift in how we're approaching the community, as well as one of our major goals is, are there any plans to release a public roadmap? So as part of our aim to be more transparent, we definitely want to be communicating and sharing more specifics in our plans. We're trying to figure out behind the scenes right now what's a good way that we can represent this and what exactly we'll be sharing. The last thing we want to do is overpromise or build up unrealistic expectations. I think we saw the issues that we ran into when we were hoping to bring you guys the new map this year. And that's something that we were excited to share with you. And obviously we weren't able to deliver on that. And that leads to some frustrations, and we totally get that. And we are hoping that you can expect to see more of us on the roadmap front and some of the content that we're already working on behind the scenes. We might even touch on some of that today, but also some of our other goals and future plans. So yes, there will definitely be a public roadmap. We're just trying to decide exactly what that's going to look like.
This answer about community management from Mari gave me a lot of optimism for the future of Bloxburg.
Talking a bit more about the community management side, some players asked if community suggestions are read and documented, and how do this impact the game's roadmap? And we read every single suggestion you guys make. We always show them to the team, we document them. So yeah, just keep popping them on the suggestions list, either on Twitter, or Discord, whatever you prefer. But we always try to keep in mind what the community wants when designing our roadmap, balancing out the community input with our own vision for the game. But yes, we always read everything you write, so that's the truth.
If you're banned from Bloxburg, I don't know how you made it this far into the video, but this is for you. This is Bram.
And same thing as with the world map, we promised that everyone would be unbanned by June 15th. However, worst time possible, our back-end system had an issue. We've resolved that, and we're working hard on unbanning everyone that's still banned from that one hack you all know about. But we're working hard, and we're still doing our best to unban every single player that is banned from them. It just took a little longer than expected, and we apologize for that.
Now, Froggy Hops dropped a lot of stuff in here, so I'm not even going to summarize it. Just listen. This is probably the best part.
All right. Touching on a pretty large kind of long-term question. So what is the vision for the game for the remainder of this year? What are the plans there? And what is the long-term vision for the game? So I see a lot of questions asking about our Halloween content this year. So that is 100% planned. We're so excited for what we're bringing this year. We're trying a different approach for how we're approaching our seasonal events. So both our Halloween and then our winter releases, those are both planned as always. The intention is to still keep the beloved Elf Hunt too. And if you haven't participated in that, we're hoping that it's going to be an even better experience than before this year. But I guess one important thing to touch on is because of the timing and some of these major things that we're trying with the team size that we have, we're not planning on releasing something in the early part of November. So you'll see our Halloween changes in the first part of October. So it gives you time to enjoy the content before obviously the holiday. And then between that and the start of December, you're going to see us focusing on our December content. We're also planning on having a New Year's release, which I don't want to give away too much. But right now, the intentions are to deliver a new location on the current map so that you get some new content there. And we'll definitely be coming out with more information on that in the future. Talking about the plans for early next year. So this is something where I don't want to spoil too much, but one major change that we're working on is overhauling the entire visuals of the game, meaning our interface. And with that, I know a major request that I've seen plenty today. We saw it plenty in the other questions leading up to this is the thought of an interactive phone. That's definitely something that we're trying to pivot our game's visuals for in the UI so that you will have a usable phone and that it really ties into the immersion of the game itself. But we don't have an exact timeline on this yet. It's obviously a major overhaul to implement all these. This is something that we've been working on since January of this year. And then we're also working on some audio changes, which you're going to start seeing some of those in our October content. And hopefully early next year, you'll hear some of our other audio changes, which we're extremely excited about. Kind of the long-term vision of the game is we want to continue overhauling the stuff that we already have implemented in the game. So our skills, our jobs, obviously.
There are big plans to expand the content creator program going into the future, which I'm definitely happy about.
Talking a little bit about the content creator partnership program. Some people asked if they will have any plans to expand the content creator partnership program and if we are going to add content creators from other countries too. And we definitely want to expand the content creator program over time, and we cannot wait to actually bring on creators from different countries as well. We just need to work out some logistics on our end, especially with the language barrier. I know not everybody speaks English, so that's the tricky bit for us, but we're committed to making everyone feel included. So that's the only problem we have right now, but we're definitely going to expand it in the future.
In this question, Bram brought up a pretty cool new way to interact with players and the community as large.
And then also seeing a lot of questions of, will you guys do events like this more? Will you do live streams? So what we're excited for is actually with the voice chat coming to Bloxburg is to open a neighborhood and just go on with voice chat, talk to you guys in Bloxburg, visit your houses, do some fun stuff. And we're very excited about that, to actually go ahead and do that with you guys.
At the very last second, they covered the Bloxburg School, which is the most requested Bloxburg update in history.
Is Bloxburg ever adding a school? So definitely a yes. We know this is one of the most common player requests that there is, but it's also a super complex one. We would love for the school to have actual gameplay rather than it just being a building for you guys. So we're looking at how we can include elements like different classes, the activities that those have, some other elements to really make it an immersive experience. But the difficult part of this is the amount of time that it takes and what that means in being able to deliver other content while we work on that. So right now, similar to our controller support and our console port, we're working to look at other options and how we can supplement our team, potentially working with one of our other studios to help us in really delivering this content sooner than later, since we have so many exciting things that we want to work on. So yes to the school, we just don't have an exact timeline on when that's coming yet.
All right, so I just finished watching. That was that was a lot to take in. We never had something like this on Bloxburg before, but I'm glad they're finally doing this. This is like the first step towards better communication and transparency in the Bloxburg community. One thing I will say before I start my review of what happened in the Q&A, I'm so proud of Bloxburg for coming this far and getting rid of, the old guy and starting over with a fresh plate. I feel like this was like the first step, so I'm glad they're doing that, and I appreciate them for starting out with the Q&A for like transparency, I get. I also want to say good job to all three of them, Froggy Hops, Mari, and Bram. They all did a great job answering the questions, and like, I guess, just generally like speaking, I guess talking in front of 1,000 something people wasn't like an easy thing. I guess they're community managers, but still, for anyone. Now, I'm not going to break down each question because there was like 50 to 100 of them, so I'm not going to go through each one. That's going to add another 30 minutes to the video. Maybe I'll save that for another day, but you can follow my Twitter for other stuff like that, talking about the things they mentioned. But I'm going to talk more to the actual, like how I thought the Q&A went, as opposed to what they talked about the content in it. If I'm being honest, some of the questions were very like dumb. Like, I don't know why they the three that actually did the Q&A, they were the people that chose the questions, and I think almost all of them, except the very last one, were like pre-picked, and they had already knew they were going to talk about them. So I don't know why they chose the ones they did. I did look at the Q&A channel, and a lot of the questions that you guys were asking would look pretty stupid, I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I feel like after the last 6 months of everything that's been going on with Bloxburg, your most pressing question, your most pressing issue is like, are you going to add cultural foods to Bloxburg? Like, after the last 6 months, that's all you have to ask? Like, I feel like there's a lot more important things that could have been covered, but again, as I said at the beginning, this is a massive step from whatever else could have happened. I also think that a lot of the questions weren't answered to the fullest extent that they should have, or they just shouldn't have been questions they picked at all. Like, a lot of the good percentage of the questions actually were like asking about a specific thing that could be added to the game, and they were like, I don't have a specific timeline for you, but we consider that. Which I feel like wasn't a very good use of time if they only had an hour. I feel like a lot of other more important questions could have been asked, or they could have kept those questions if they wanted to, and gone in depth as to, and to get a little more in depth, not totally in depth, but a little more in depth into why that is the case, like why that couldn't be specifically added to the game. But other than that, those are really my only two pretty small critiques of the Q&A. It was very positive thing for the Bloxburg community. I think a lot of trust already has been rebuilt, and that was one of the questions, topics they mentioned. Things they're trying to improve in the Bloxburg community, trust between the devs and the players. So I think they definitely accomplished that today. But other than that, I think they did a pretty good job. I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. Lots of different things to talk about now, obviously. What do you think about some of the questions? Did you have a specific question you wanted asked, or I guess answered, and they didn't cover it? What is that? Put it in the comments down below, and maybe I can get them to talk about it over on Twitter, or maybe in a future Q&A you could ask it. Just what are your general thoughts about what they talked about, the other 50 topics they mentioned? But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you all did enjoy, though. If you did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.